Morning and happy Thursday. When we left off, I had you watch two videos. Last Thursday, I had you watch a video about taking apart a trailer bearing. Granted, this is on a log splitter, but it is a trailer. Uh, but taking off the bearing, inspecting it, cleaning it. Just the biggest thing is inspecting that spindle right there for wear marks and so forth. If they are, you've got some major problems, and that's a whole nother subject. But this spindle was great. These bearings were good. And then we have this video here that my wife shot. Apologies for the lighting. It was one of those beautiful sunny days. So it's a good thing. Uh, Everybody has their own ways of repacking a bearing. For the most part, this is how I was taught. Here's what I can tell you. I've already heard a comment, Mr. McMullen, my dad says that's not how I not how to repack a bearing. Okay, that's fine. They probably learned a little bit differently. Here's what I can tell you. I have never, knock on wood, I have never had a bearing fail on me. So I would actually probably argue with me, being up in Canada or cabins and taking our trailers up there and everything else, going 600 miles and never having a failure at highway speeds or anything. I think I know kind of what I'm doing. And your parent or whoever it was that told you I didn't do it right is probably also doing it correctly if they've never had a failure. The people that are doing it wrong have had a failure. So I take it with a grain of salt, whatever. To each their own. I'm not saying that this is the perfect way to do it, but this is how I've done it. This is how I was taught. My dad, who was a mechanic, my grandpa, who was a mechanic, my uncle, who was a mechanic, my other uncle, who was a mechanic, my other uncle, who was a mechanic, all do it this way. So just saying. Uh, but one thing I want to point out in this video that you didn't see is right, let me fast forward it. Right here. I go to put the cap back on, and it goes on a little ways. You can see right, I don't know, oops. You can see right in there, there's still a little bit of a gap on the flange. If you look really carefully, right there, there's still a little bit of a gap. And I stopped hitting it because I know something's wrong. But actually, in a second here, I'm going to turn the hub, and it's kind of stiff, almost like it's sticking. And it's not that it was over tightened. That was not the case. What actually happened is that retaining washer. So you got all your bearings inside there in grease. There's a retaining washer, and then the nut screws on, the castle nut, and then that cotter pin goes through so the castle nut can't move. Well, that bearing was actually so big that it wasn't allowing, you've got that round bearing inside of a little bit bigger diameter tube. That bearing buddy needs to go in, and what was happening with that bearing or that washer on the inside is that bearing buddy couldn't go any farther. It was hitting that washer. What I actually ended up doing was I took both sides apart, took an angle grinder with a sanding or flap sander, and actually took the washer and made it smaller in diameter. Now, it did not hurt anything because the bearing is still riding on that wall, the outside of the bearing is still riding on that washer. I cleaned it all up to make sure there's no metal burrs because, again, we don't want anything besides grease inside that bearing. That's, you get one little speck of sand, and in theory, can work its way in there and just really start messing things up. So, what I ended up doing was I sand both sides down, and then that way with a, smaller diameter washer inside that tube or inside the hub, then that bearing buddy was able to go in there no problem and not hit the washer. So no issues at all. It spins very freely. It spins very freely. It's not going to be like "Wee." It's just going to slowly spin and stop because it's got grease in there. It's a great lubricant. It's just not going to allow it for free spinning for a long time. So that was one thing I had to modify. Not a big deal. But we went through all the steps of, and most importantly, from this video to the previous week's video of, how to disassemble the bearing. What'd you learn? That's gonna be your assignment this week. So in other words, here's what I want from you. I want you to tell me, like, this video doesn't exist. Internet has blown up. We don't have internet, but you're gonna send me basically a letter stating how to take apart, inspect, and repack a bearing. So I'm not looking for like, hey, using your left hand, make sure that pretend like I have a basic mechanical know-how. I know how to use pliers. I know how to use, what tools am I going to need though? Tell me what tools I'm going to need, and tell me what I should be looking for and the steps to do it. McMullen, how many steps do you think there are? Probably around 20-ish, somewhere in there. Make sure you're using proper English, full sentences. Just don't say inspect, grease, good, yay. You give me that, I give you something. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit more tedious than my other assignments, I'll admit, but I want to know that you've actually learned something. I want to know what you've learned. And it's a great way for me to see, hey, little Jimmy, looks like you skipped, that step where you should be, packing the bearings, or, how describe how you pack the bearings. Again, pretend like there's no internet, there's no telephone. You got to send me a letter stating how to take apart a trailer bearing, how to inspect it, clean it up, repack the trailer bearing, and then, so that I can get back on the road. So that is the assignment for this week. You can submit your assignment in Google Classroom. You can submit it in uh, Word file, however you want to get it to me. If you want to train a pigeon and put a little note on its leg and send it to me, that's awesome. But again, however you want to turn it in, I have no preference. Just make sure it's easily found. At the same time, too, again, make sure full sentences. Don't give me garbage. You give me garbage, you get a garbage grade. It's that simple. So that's what I want for an assignment this week. There's no internet. The only form of communication is old school snail mail via a letter. Describe to me how I would do this. How would I take apart my trailer bearing, inspect it, put it back together properly so that I can get back on the road? If you got any questions at all, feel free to ask me. Remember, probably the easiest, bestest, most fantastic way to get a hold of me is through Remind. It's basically a text messaging service where we don't have to know each other's phone numbers, and you can send me a message instantly. So look forward to hearing from everybody. It's kind of a dreary Thursday. Perfect day to work on assignments. Just saying. Uh, and also, this is your last week to get on board if you haven't gotten on board yet. Uh, Seniors, congratulations. This is your last week. Haven't heard from any of you, which is sad, but it is what it is. I'll take it where I can get it, I guess. Um, I offer one piece of advice: work hard. Magical things will happen if you just work hard and stay at it. Become complacent and lazy, you won't be happy with yourself or what you've created. Take care. Enjoy your weekend.